everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we are doing Monk's Last Case. Mr. Monk's Last Case.
Yes.
And it was really, really good. I really loved it.
Yeah.
Although it was depressing. And not what I expected at all.
No.
Not the depressing part. That's something I kind of know about from personal experience, but no, Marco thought, we were really sure about this. His wife's daughter was going to get married, and that's what, they planned for, people have to pick up their tuxes, etc. So we thought it was going to be about her getting married, and just about that.
We thought that because from the plot, they made it seem like, look, this is going to be about this girl Molly. I don't know what we should call her because she's not Monk's daughter, she's not Monk's stepdaughter. I don't know what you should call her. The girl,
the girl Molly, daughter.
The fake daughter, the delusion daughter. She
was very nice. She was very happy-go-lucky.
We'll talk about it, but she's supposed to get married, and we thought that like this whole movie was going to be like a fluff movie, where they're at the wedding, and you see all the goofy relatives, and then there's a murder at the wedding. Like, I was really not expecting this at all.
No.
And so it was kind of hilarious. Like, I was like, wow, they did this? Like, cool. Like, it just felt like it's so much better than a lot of the other movies from this year, and so much better than a lot of revivals, too. Like, when I was watching this movie, I was thinking, like, instead of making that terrible X-Files revival series, that just the whole thing was horrible, basically, why couldn't they have just made, like, a movie series like this? Like, why couldn't they have come back and do something like this where you bring them back, they have a case, they get together, whatever. Like, it really was simple to make an X-Files revival, and yet they made that trash. And, even with Psych, they made that first stupid movie where they tried to make Psych into, like, the Fast and the Furious, and they said something like, that was always the plan or something, and I was like, uh-oh, that's pretty bad. And they had to, like, course correct, and even their other two movies just really aren't as good as, like, most good Psych episodes. But this movie, however, I felt like even though the case wasn't the greatest case of all time, which I don't know if Safi agrees or not, but even though the case wasn't the greatest, I thought that this movie was really, really good, and is a great example of how to revive a show.
Yeah.
Safi? Let's get into it.
The case was meaningful and important.
Well,
because it was personal.
Even though it was like a really paper thin, like I would say it's like a C+ case. Even though it's like that, it is personal, and so the weight of the case being about the fake daughter's dead husband is what's important to it. It's what's adds value to it. So that's what I would say. Safi?
Well, I thought it was very emotional in some places.
I bet you did.
And especially when this woman's name is Molly. That's his fake daughter. And she said she had her husband's tux. She still had it. She had to take it back because he's dead. And there's in the pocket were his vows. It was because they had both written their own vows. And I just thought it was very meaningful and very well written. They really took some extra care.
Yeah, there were
some of the aspects of the movie.
There were a lot of little touches. However, there was something at the end that I would like to complain about when we get to that point. But we're not there yet. But they did a very good job. Like this was a great movie.
Well,
Safi?
So anyway, I guess we should talk about what the deal is.
Well, let's talk about, like, the return of all the characters, like, the return of, like, what are they doing now and what happened in between the series and the movie. Because remember, if you guys haven't seen our Monk reviews, we hated the final season. And for the most part, I mean, it did have some really good episodes at the beginning. But we hated the finale. We hated all the stuff with, like, Randy marrying Sharona. That was fucking stupid. And Natalie marrying that NPC Navy guy who just was trash when she should have married Monk. So, like, let's talk about each character. So, Natalie, Safi, what happened with her?
Well, you just said it, and what happens is, because they think there's a wedding, Randy and Natalie come to the San Francisco airport, and Monk and his fake daughter are there to greet them.
Well, they don't just come to the airport, they come to town because they want to go to the wedding, Safi.
Well,
they're not just visiting the airport.
They're waiting for them, and so we get to hear what they're doing, and, like, Randy's in New Jersey, and remember, he got some kind of, I don't know, police officer,
Oh, I think he's the chief.
Chief, yeah.
Of that one New Jersey town that just so happened to have Sharona there and everything, like, and he still doesn't act like a police chief, by the way.
No, he doesn't.
Like, that is just kind of hilarious that, like, even in this movie, after he's been a police chief for however many years, he is still not a convincing police chief at all.
No.
So,
but he was funny. He had several funny.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm saying that, like, the writers, when they wrote that awful series finale, like, it was stupid to do that, and it still doesn't work. And I'll say too that I think Randy probably had the best joke in the movie, which was what, Safi? Do you know what, or was that your favorite, or what? Or do you even know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about. I thought it was funny with the Lego bridge.
Yeah, the Lego bridge. I thought that was the funniest joke in the movie. Because it was so funny to see him put all that effort into that theory.
And I think they were all struggling not to laugh.
They weren't. You could see Monk. He was, like, covering his mouth and pretending that he was, like, just being contemplative because he was struggling so hard not to laugh
his head off, because it was hilarious, because it was a Lego set. What we have to say what the thing was.
Well, no, I was just saying my favorite joke in the movie.
But we'll talk about it later. But
what?
It was funny. It involved a Lego set that was mechanized, which I know I bought one, at least one or two in the past. And he made something else that had to do with the murder that they were trying to solve.
We should also mention now something I thought was queer, because I don't want to seem like I'm being negative towards the movie, but so I just want to get, like, the queer things out of the way. Randy at the airport, he did what they used to do on the Andy Griffith Show, when they would talk about how characters are doing off screen. And so, like, Randy's like, Sharona's doing fine. Sharona's doing great. And also, Benji is doing great. And also, Benji had a grandchild. And then he shows a picture of a baby. And it's like, wow, I guess we're not going to see Benji or Sharona this time. But that was fine. But I'm just saying, like, I thought that was really queer. And then the fact that, you have Natalie. And Natalie did something that I thought was very shitty. And just indicative of how her not ending up with Monk was a huge issue. She abandoned Mr. Monk. And she moved to Georgia because her stupid husband is there. And he had to relocate because he's a part of the Navy. So all because of that NPC Navy storyline, she moved to Georgia and abandoned him. So he has no assistant at all. And I felt like it was a huge issue with the movie why he didn't have any assistant at all. I mean, Molly did, as they talked about, she did take over during the pandemic and helped him get through that, and ever since that, I guess. But before that, he didn't have anyone. And see, that just goes with the awful storyline that they did in the final season, where they tried to make it seem like he was cured. And they even said in this movie like that he was cured or something.
For a little while, but it's not true.
For a little while. And it's like, yeah, right.
No.
That's stupid.
It's
so
not true.
a lot of the stupid stuff in this movie is all because of that stupid final season, of all the stupid choices that they made when they wrote that crap. You know, like, it all, as I said, it all just comes back to bite you. Right, Safi?
Yeah, it's just it's just not realistic to say it never was. And when they said that, because he solved his wife's murder.
Yeah.
And so, for some reason, they thought that was the source of everything that was bothering him, but that's just not true. Because his brother has agoraphobia. His brother didn't have a wife who was killed by a bomb.
Well, and also, we saw Monk having these issues with Trudy before she was even dead.
Right.
You know, they were starting to appear. And her death just aggravated his issues.
But they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
He has... I was telling Marco, well, he had multiple issues, but one was obsessive-compulsive disorder. It's really hard. I used to work at a mental health clinic. I was there for a long enough time and to see some stuff and hear and be around mental illness, but obsessive-compulsive disorder is really hard to fix. And in fact, you don't fix it. You just learn to live with it. And Howie Mandel is a famous comedian person who has obsessive-compulsive disorder. So that's somebody, a real person.
Yeah, he was in Monk, remember?
That's right. He played a...
the cult leader?
Yeah, a cult leader. So it was pretty apropos, actually, that he...
Would you like to be a cult leader, Safi?
No.
I already started a cult.
Too.
I already started a cult. It's the cult of Richard Thomas. Nobody will join.
Oh, God. Well...
So, did you like how Natalie abandoned him and everything? Because, remember, she wouldn't if she hadn't have been with that stupid NPC.
Well, it's just the fact that the storyline put her with him just because he used to be friends with her husband.
Yeah.
And that's just stupid. That isn't realistic either. I didn't like that. Oh, and the daughter wasn't there. That's right, the daughter didn't come.
Yeah, I think they mentioned something about her, like, she's doing great. That's what they said, like, she's doing really great. But, like, again, if they made a sequel, though, we might see them. I'm just saying, I thought that was a little queer and everything. And, you know, we obviously have to talk about, like, how these characters are doing, like, how the captain is doing, too. The former captain. How is he doing, Safi?
Well, he works for a very rich person. He has a cushy job, and he gets to do things, and he gets a salary that he never even imagined could happen.
And he is still with that woman who he has no chemistry with. And what he says about her is that she's doing great. It's just like, everybody's doing great except for Monk. How is Monk doing, Safi?
Well, this is the thing I've dealt with this before personally, and it happens. It happens today. It's happened in the past, and it may happen in the future.
How do you know?
Because I just know.
Really?
Anyway, you have somebody goes in for counseling, and they're depressed, and they see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is a medical doctor, and they prescribe medication. And so they might take it a few times or something, but what happens is they save their medication. They don't take it. Therefore, they're not really getting helped medically or by a pharmaceutical. And then when they decide, they just save all that medicine up, and they use it to kill themselves. I've dealt with that, or been around that about 3 or 4 times at the place I worked. It just brought back a lot of memories, and it's sad. And he was doing that. In fact, I knew he was doing it right away. They showed he was in his apartment, or whatever it is, and the guy comes by, it's a delivery guy, and he says, okay, he tells him your renewal is due. You need to renew your medication. This is the last one. And then there was this big thing, Monk, all he had was a 20. He had to give him a tip. And
that was another funny joke.
That was another funny joke amidst what he was planning on doing.
Yeah, because Mr. Monk is a broken man now, and he is going through a conflict which he has already gone through before, where he thinks that his work isn't making a difference. He's already gone through that conflict in the series explicitly, like the same exact thing of like, where my work isn't making a difference or whatever. But the thing that I really liked about it was the fact that it feels realistic, because all these people abandoned him, and so he's just been all alone.
Except for Molly.
Stewing in his own thoughts, and you got Molly, and she's kind of a pain because she's getting married, and the fact that like she put all this pressure on him to pay for her wedding is payback for her helping him during the pandemic. And so he had this book deal for 10 years, and he never managed to write a good book about his experiences as a detective. And I thought that was also really funny. Like, she's like, we had ghostwriters, we had editors, and they all quit and left. And, and it's like a lot of it, his depression is also because the pressure that Molly put on him to pay for her wedding.
Oh, Marco, I don't believe that she put the pressure on himself.
No, he said that the deal was that for her helping me, that I would pay for a wedding, right?
Yeah, but I think he put a lot more pressure on himself than she put on him.
I don't know.
Well, anyway.
Because we didn't see that. We didn't see that conversation, so who knows?
No, we didn't. And after he has this little tete-a-tete with the delivery guy, he opens his medicine cabinet. There are all the bottles. So he's saving his medication. And then all throughout the episode, he's talking to the ghost of his wife.
The movie?
The movie. And
now that's something to say too. Did you like the fact that he was talking with Trudy the whole movie? Because I felt like, and now this was fucked up, I felt like he was talking to her the whole movie.
He was.
Because he didn't really have a real assistant. And so he didn't have like an assistant to talk with. And so like she was basically his assistant character. And so like I kind of like that idea, but at the same time, I think a big issue with this movie is the fact that he is not really given any new assistant, even though he's in a really bad way. And I feel like one of the things they could have done in this movie is give him a new assistant at some point. Because Natalie comes back, and she's just kind of there sometimes, and, she's just, she's whatever. But, like, she's really not his assistant anymore. She's a real estate agent, and, she doesn't even want to be his assistant again because, she wants to be with her NPC husband in Georgia.
She said she had a very lucrative business.
Well, maybe she could
selling a lot of houses.
Well, maybe she could think about what Monk thinks about at the end and think about helping people who need help instead of thinking about the real estate business.
Whatever.
And so, what else do you have to say, Safi? Let's get into it.
Well,
come on, say something.
So anyway, he goes and sees a psychiatrist, and I thought this was interesting. the pharmacy called the psychiatrist and said that he had not renewed the medication and that he needed to renew it. And the thing with this medication is lorazepam. It's Lore something.
Speak up, Safi.
Anyway, this medication was only to be taken on a PRN basis, which means as needed. So let's say he was...
You've already gone over how he's hoarded up the medication, Safi.
He wasn't even supposed to be renewing it like that so often. Because if it's as needed and if he's doing well, then he wouldn't be needing it, right? So, I mean, the psychiatrist was very concerned. And he's the character, it's the same one from the end of the show.
Dr. Bell.
Dr. Bell, and he reveals, I don't think it matters if we tell it now, because he doesn't show up that many times during the
Well, yeah, I thought he also had another hilarious joke, probably the second funniest joke. Dr. Bell said that he's actually been retired for 2 months.
Right.
And that Monk is his only patient. And I was like, God, that is hilarious. And it's like depressing and perfect all at the same time. Because he also did like a radio show where he pretended that he had like 5 different patients with all these issues. And it was actually just all Monk and his issues. And I thought that was funny. And so...
Monk figured it out too. And he had to admit that was true.
I thought that was really interesting with Dr. Bell retiring because he could really be Monk's assistant, his new assistant, kind of. I mean, I know he's old, but Monk is old too, so... Right?
Yeah. Well, I won't talk about that, but he...
What? He's really older.
He looked very fit.
Yeah.
And he really didn't look like he changed too much.
No.
And I thought that was really good.
Well, what I'm saying is just that, even though Dr. Bell is older, Monk is older as well. So, like, you can't use the excuse that, like, oh, he's old, so he can't do that.
Right. That's true. And it is true. Well, anyway, Dr. Bell was saying he was so upset because, Monk was his only patient, and he loved him. And then he started to cry, and Monk said, "I love you too." And
that was funny too. That like he put up the tissue box, and Monk's like, "I don't need that." And then Dr. Bell started using the tissues, and that was really good too. So the main case here, which we should talk about now, I guess that we've gone through like all the characters and what they've been doing. The main case is that the guy who's Griffin, the guy who's gonna marry the fake daughter, he is trying to, I don't know.
He's an investigative reporter for the San Francisco Herald.
He's trying to expose this rich guy who is basically
Elon Musk.
No, well, he's also Jeff Bezos. He's like a combination of both those guys, and
Actually, you know who he reminded me of?
Who?
Because of that rocket.
Your mom?
Pushing the limits. He's going to go up in a rocket, and that's what this is all heading towards the end. And what they do is they do a test on the record, and they try to put the rocket, and they try to put pressure on it. And they bring it up to a level they never have. What does that remind you of? What happened this summer? The submersible.
This summer?
The submersible that was invented by that rich guy, and all
he wasn't taking it to a new level that they never did before.
You want to make a bet?
They did that expedition all the time, and
no, but there were too many times, and they had not tested the efficacy or whatever it is.
But he still wasn't taking it to another level or something like what you're saying.
That's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
That guy, but of course they didn't show
remind
any
me.
wife or anything. They
No,
showed this
the
rich
rocket.
guy's
The
wife.
rocket is all because Elon Musk does that kind of thing. He flies to space all the time.
Yeah.
He flies with other people to space. You know, he's a space guy and a weirdo.
The
And
other
then
guy liked space too, but he didn't. He wasn't good enough.
they're both kind of retarded, and so I was
weird.
And I was like, you know, are they really going to do this? Because, like, Knives Out 2, which I haven't seen, but I heard that that villain in that movie is basically Elon Musk as well, because, you know, the guy who made that movie is a little crybaby who can't stand that he has any power. And I was thinking, like, this villain here, he's kind of weak. Like, one of the biggest issues with the movie, even though it was very, very good, was that the villain was really weak. He was weak sauce.
Well, he did not.
I didn't like him at all.
Monk was any kind of. He did respect him, and he knew him about from the past, his reputation.
He was a money man who liked to bribe people, and he was literally the exact same villain in the new Wonka movie. And the fact that I watched that right after the Monk movie, I was like, geez, like, they really can't come up with any better villain than just a rich guy who wants to bribe people. Like, that's the state of villains nowadays. A rich guy who bribes people. Like, there's so many of those in real life, but at the same time, like, the Monk show already had a lot of rich villains before.
Yeah.
Who are exactly like this. I mean, and also, too, you could almost say that this guy is like a composite of other villains from the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the whole thing with flying to space, you know, you think about the astronaut. So, there's that as well. Safi?
And he had a nice, beautiful wife. And the thing about, and remember, the captain was working for him now. He was his head of security. And so what happened is Molly, the fake daughter, was going to get married to a guy named Griffin. He's an investigative reporter. Well, what was he investigating? Well, the main thing he was investigating was the fact that his partner had gone scuba diving and he died. And the circumstances of his death were odd and not right. And they showed what happened, and he killed him. That guy, rich guy, killed him, but he covered it up and paid all these people off, and he was able to, and the thing about it, the reason why he killed him was because the guy owned the other half of the company, so by getting him out of the way, this rich guy now owns the whole company.
Yeah.
So Griffin had been investigating all this, and he came up with all kinds of information, and he wanted to publish it, and the rich guy offered him, he had fired the managing editor of a major publication, maybe of the paper, I can't remember.
And he was going to let him have the position.
Yeah. And Griffin said no.
And so, after that, Griffin goes on a bungee jump with his soon-to-be wife. And this was the part that really surprised me, because I was so not expecting for them to kill that guy off.
No.
But they killed him off, and it's, like, horrific. Like, he just plunges to his death, and it was kind of hard to watch because, I don't like heights. And so I just knew that something bad was going to happen too. And so he's dead. And so this case is all about solving his murder. And so that's why I'm saying that, like, even though it was a really weak case and a weak villain, a lot of what's good about it is just the fact that it is the case of the guy who's going to marry the fake daughter. So there's a lot of
it's a personal thing,
emotional weight attached to that case.
Right.
But there really shouldn't have to be, like, emotional weight attached to a case for Monk to solve it. So
in the frame of mind that he's in, maybe yes, it does have to be.
Well, and so I was saying that, like, that's another plot line in this movie, is that the police chief, the new one, she really wants him to come back and solve more cases for the police.
And she opens a drawer, and there's 22 case files in there of cases she can't solve, murder cases. And she gave him a permanent pass and said he's welcome to come there anytime, because Monk suspects the rich guy at the very beginning, and they find out that on the bridge, this guy said to Molly, what did he say? It was his.
Well, I was scratching my head at that too immediately. Like, the guy said to Molly, "Oh no, it was 6 feet too long," and I was like, "How in the hell does this random guy know that it's 6 feet too long?" Yeah. And it's like, "Oh shit, that's a clue that Monk is going to use." Like, I was like, if they really just left that in there as a random line, I was going to complain about that. So,
But it was 6 feet too long, and you find out in the end what the deal is. But it was it was one of those where he solves it. But it's really very simple. But it took him the whole episode to figure it out, and it was by accident that he did. And we can talk about that in a little bit.
We can get to that.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, he knows that that's the guy.
Yes.
And that he's the killer. And it's funny because Leland is working for him. He's his head of security, and he doesn't believe Monk. And so there's this funny scene where, like, they're in this other room, and Monk just shows him example after example of why it's so obvious that this guy is the bad guy. And Leland is like, "Oh, I don't see anything." And he's in denial as usual.
Yeah.
So he's still his old self, because that's what happened when his girlfriend was the killer. Remember the real estate woman? He's like, "No, she is not the killer at all, Monk. You don't know what you're talking about." And he's doing the same thing in this movie, but a lot of the stuff in this movie, it's a little contrived so that it can be like how it was. And I really thought that they did a great job at, like, making a movie that was like the old show. Mm-hmm. Like, it does not feel different. It doesn't feel modernized. It doesn't feel like it has any political agenda. It's none of that. It's a very, very well done revival.
Yeah.
Unlike other ones.
Yeah.
Like the X-Files.
Well, it was just pleasant to watch because it
was pleasant.
It wasn't different.
Yeah.
And you just didn't. Would hear some agenda come popping up, and you go, "Oh, well, that wasn't the case."
No, there was no agendas.
That was a good thing.
Very surprising, because I thought, even with Monk, there's got to be an agenda somewhere, because it's 2023.
But nope.
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 Not like the Wonka movie, unfortunately. And so, another thing we should talk about in this movie is that there's this little bombing attempt that happens of a dog shelter.
Well, what happens is the guy who was on the bridge, who said that remark about, but it was 6 feet too long. That's the killer. And but he's in cahoots with the rich guy. And they suspect him the whole episode of they're working together, but not quite. And what happens is he's a delivery driver. And they have this, it was really strange how it just pops up. They go to this animal shelter.
Oh, well, I thought it was strange because, and I'll talk about that part, because Natalie takes him there, and the whole movie he's talking about how he has these plans, which is to kill himself. And
they don't know that.
They don't know it, and it's like really depressing because it's like he might actually kill himself just so that they have to make this his last movie. Because it is called His Last Case, and I was really worried that he was actually going to kill himself after the husband or the fiance got killed. I was like, if they'll kill him, they might kill Mr. Monk. And But at the dog shelter, Natalie introduces him to this dog named Watson. You know, like Sherlock and Watson. And it's a very nice looking dog.
It's a really cute, like a poodle, but it's bigger than a poodle.
Nobody's adopted it though, so they're gonna kill it pretty soon. Because
it's a kill shelter, and they only have animals for a certain number of days.
Because they're evil, and she's like, Monk, you should get this dog. You know, like in the series where you had the dog, and then we took it away from you because in the series you weren't allowed to have anything except for your right hand and Natalie, and so like Monk is like, no, I don't want the dog.
Well,
no.
The dog was also cleaning up his cage.
I'm not gonna act like I didn't I liked that dog in the series, which I really did, and I liked it so much that I even asked to visit it all the time. If Safi remembers that. Yep. Remember that?
Yep.
He's like, I want to visit this dog all the time. And the owner said, okay, Monk, fine with me. Well, now in this movie, for some reason, he's back to not liking dogs, and I guess he never visits that dog. There's no mention of it at all. And so, this Watson dog, you know that at the end, he's going to get this dog somehow. And that's like kind of like a random little thing, and I thought this is really fucking queer. Because, like, he can't get Natalie for some dipshit reason, so he's gonna get a dog. And I thought that is some Kathleen Kennedy type of bullshit. You know, like that bitch, she has the famous quote, like, instead of the main character getting a love interest, how about he gets a dog? And it's like, ugh! Okay, like, come on. Like, yes, dogs are nice, but give Monk Natalie. Natalie is his Watson. A dog isn't his Watson, Safi. Mm-hmm. I refuse to believe that in the future of Monk movies, they are going to have Monk walking around all day with a dog, solving crime. That sounds like
kind of show.
Yeah, that sounds like fan fiction, to be honest. That doesn't sound like something that would legitimately happen, but who knows? They might do that. Safi, you have to talk. When I stop talking,
I don't know what else to say
you have to talk.
Before he leaves, he says, "It's okay, dog. I know you want to go. It's time for you to go."
Add your opinions to things.
I thought I didn't like that.
What?
Actually.
Why?
He was telling the dog it was okay for him to die, that he was going to be doing the same thing, or something like that. I didn't like that. But, you know, it kind of went in with the story. It wasn't weird. And he's just so depressed. And they really don't notice it. They kind of do, but they don't say anything about it, and that's really worrisome.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the show, I know we're not there yet, but they do have a suicide hotline number, and they do a message about somebody who needs help, or you need help, to call this number. So I thought that was good, because they just talk about the entire episode. It's a thread that runs through the whole thing.
And I was wondering why. It seemed like maybe somebody involved with the show committed suicide, but I never heard about that happening. So it was a very interesting thing to put. And so eventually everything gets solved, and it turns out that the bad guy had the delivery driver replace the tape measure with one that would have, well, like every inch was like a little bit shorter or longer or whatever, and so
because the guy measured his own bungee cord,
yeah,
he made his own cut. He did that's why they couldn't figure it out. But they did see that the window to the shed or whatever where he kept his bungee supplies, that there had been paint chips on the counter. And so it had been opened, and then he had been a triathlon champion. And Molly said that these trophies that he'd gotten it 5 times. this trophy. So he had 5 trophies up there, and 2 of them were out of sync. Of course, Monk would notice that because he's so detail-oriented. And so somebody had crawled through the window. And then what happened was Monk was picking out his coffin for his death. And, I mean, this is the whole episode with this suicide thing running through it. And the people, it's very interesting, the guy they had showing...
that was one guy playing himself and his twin.
Right.
And that was really funny, and Monk points out that they're not really identical twins. They have a little bit of a difference. One of them has a head that's a little smaller than the other one's head.
1/4 of an inch.
That was good.
So they measure their heads, and they do see that one of them has a 1/4 of an inch smaller head, and then Monk lines up the tape measures, and then he figures the case out.
Yeah.
So at the end, the bad guy is on getting ready to go. He's on the rocket launch pad. He's in the rocket, and you see a squeegee on the outside of the window.
It just keeps on cleaning it and cleaning it. And we should also mention that earlier on in the movie, there were some other good jokes. One was where the bomb went off and killed the delivery driver, and Monk was running away, and he stepped on dog crap, and he was more horrified about the dog crap on his foot than on his shoe than about the bombing, and that was really good. And then also, Mr. Monk was a bartender at this party because he was trying to be in disguise, and he couldn't do that right, obviously, because he just couldn't handle, he had to make it perfect, and he just couldn't even make one drink. So that was another good joke. So at the end, Safi?
So at the end, they...
Well, one of the endings, there's another ending where he almost commits suicide, and we'll get to that next.
Well, the police come aboard the rocket launch site, and they're going to arrest him, and that's announced on the speaker. And so the rocket launch is off, and Monk looks in the door, and the guy thinks he's dead because at this party, Monk stole his laptop because
you didn't need to go through all that.
Okay, well, anyway, he thought he was dead. He thought Monk was dead because he'd gone off.
You didn't need to go through all that.
Okay, well, anyway, so he comes in there. So, of course, you can hear on the loudspeaker from the cabin the whole thing about how he figured out how he murdered that guy. And then it's over, and they arrest the guy. And then you come to the ending.
And in the ending, he almost commits suicide, and he's at the park, and Trudy is there, and she stops him, and that's when Griffin's ghost comes up to him and tells him how much it meant that he solved the case. And then next, all these other people from past cases, their ghosts come up to him and tell him that what he did meant a lot to them, too.
140 people.
And I will say that one of my complaints, even though I really like this movie a lot, I probably sound really negative because I just watched Wonka, and that won't be a very positive review. That'll be the opposite of this review, if you can even imagine that. The people playing these ghosts of the people that he solved their cases, they are not actually like people that were in the old series, the original series. They are not actually victims from past episodes. And I thought it was really shitty that they couldn't have at least gotten the main ghosts, like this little group of ghosts that comes up to the picnic table. They couldn't have at least gotten some of the real people who played the actual victims on the original show. That was a little queer. They should have gotten those for that scene. What, do you agree, Safi?
Yeah, I thought it would have been a nice touch.
Yeah, but no, these are just random people. So it kind of felt a little less personal because those are not really victims. In fact, one of them, she says that my case is in the freezer waiting for you to solve it. Like,
because he said, I don't recognize you.
I guess that's a teaser trailer for the sequel. Like, my case is in the freezer and you're just sitting here trying to kill yourself, you fucking selfish bastard.
She didn't say that.
Well, that's what she was thinking. Right?
Yeah.
So at the end, he decides not to kill himself and instead to start solving cases again. And it's him walking in this field, like in Sound of Music, with all
actually,
these ghosts.
It reminded me of, what is that movie that directed by Steven Spielberg?
Ooh, Harry Potter?
No, he didn't direct any Harry Potter movie.
Oh, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
It reminded you of Schindler's List?
Isn't that the guy that saved all the Jewish people by saying he needed them for making...
But at the end of that movie, they weren't walking with Schindler in a field.
No, not at all. But it kind of reminded me of
it. Reminded me of The Sound of Music, and I really liked the ending a lot. I heard people complain.
I liked it too.
And say that it was too over the top, and I really liked it. I felt like if they had gotten the real actors from the original series who played victims, it could have been really impactful. But it still was very, very well done. And overall, I really loved the movie. I had problems with it, but I thought that it was really funny. It reminded me of the original show. And Mr. Monk is back. You know, he just fits in this role like a glove. He could probably play it until he was on his deathbed. And even on his deathbed, he could still probably manage to play the role. Right, Safi?
Yeah. It was really good. And see, what had happened is, remember, he told the psychiatrist, it doesn't matter what all the things that I did and all the people I've helped because there's still murders going on. So what I did didn't make any difference.
Yeah, he's already gone through that conflict before, by the way.
So anyway,
the
people, the ghost of all the people he helped said all this meaningful stuff like you helped my family to move on, and we really appreciate what you did for us. And Griffin, who was going to be the husband, you know, he said, you didn't give up and you stood up for me. And so it took the actual people who had been affected by a murder to tell him that he did make a difference. And so that's what convinced him not to kill himself.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good.
It was really good. My biggest complaint, or I guess my last complaint, is that once again, he does not have a new assistant. And you can tell he needs an assistant. He doesn't need he can have the dog, but
the dog shows up at the end at his apartment.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that too. They did this really hilarious and awesome fake out where they were going to end the movie and they played that awful song, "It's a jungle out there."
They played 2 lines of it and then they stopped.
Yeah, and I thought and then they show Monk and he gets the dog and Natalie says, "Have fun with that because you're not going to have fun with me because I have to go home to my stupid NPC husband." And then they cut back to credits and they played the good theme song. The theme song from season 1. The good one. I got really excited. It was like the people who made the show actually listened to criticism. Or maybe they didn't. They're just having fun. I don't know. But it actually felt like... I don't think they listened to our videos, but it felt like it kind of. Because they really did a good job at, like, making a good movie. Like, one of the things that I loved about the movie, besides the fact that it wasn't a fluff movie, it was a very serious movie in terms of, like, it had a lot of emotion and maturity to it, unlike other things that come out, like Marvel movies. I really like the fact that Monk was in most of the movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, that really made this movie feel like it was a season 1 episode. Because, like, in every season after season 1, it's always Mr. Monk and that person and that person and that person. But in season 1, a lot of it was just focused on Monk himself. And so that is what you get in this movie. You get Monk himself. So I really like that a lot. But maybe if they make a sequel, give him an assistant or bring Natalie back, have her divorce her stupid husband, and then get with Monk. Because it's about time. Right, Safi?
I suppose so.
What? What? Why are you laughing? What's funny? Am I a clown? Am I here to amuse you?
Yeah, you are. So anyway, we have to give our food rating.
Go ahead.
I guess I give it the best turkey dinner that we. Marco made a really good dressing.
Stuffing.
And it was probably stuffing. Well, it's called both things, but stuffing, and it's the best we've ever had. And he made. I don't know where. So anyway, we have to do our food review, and Marco made a really good dressing or stuffing, as people call it, for Thanksgiving dinner. I'd say it was the best we've ever had, and so it's a really good movie compared to I don't know, practically everything that I've seen this year for 2023. And so I'd give it a really good review, and that would be this really, really good stuffing. What about you, Marco?
Well, I felt like this wasn't like an ending to the series. I felt like this was like a beginning. Like this was actually a revival. If it's not, then that's fine too, though, because it was good enough to say, like, yeah, it'd be fine if it ended here because they did a really good job. Even though the case was pretty mediocre. I would give it biscuits and gravy. So like a breakfasty meal. Really, really good biscuits and gravy with a nice thick sauce. With lots of sausage bits and it's a little spicy. I think that really describes this movie well because it didn't feel like an entree or like a full, like even an appetizer. It felt like breakfast and like the best is yet to come. Maybe. Because it's like all the actors, they can still do what they did in the old show basically. Like, I know that somebody said that the captain, the former captain, it looked like he had a little bit of trouble walking around, but I really feel like all the actors could still do what they did before. Once in a while, they could make movies like Monk. Like Psych.
Right. I think that would be great. It seems like they did leave room for him to come back. I just don't know how all the optics would be for that. That like his assistant.
Yeah, because everyone's gone. Like Randy leaves at the end. He goes back to New Jersey where he doesn't deserve to be police chief. Natalie goes back to her stupid husband.
But the captain is still around.
Molly's gonna have a job in New York.
That's right.
So Monk's fucked.
He does have the dog, but like Marco said, that's not a substitute.
Yeah,
It's just
he's got a dog
at home.
and he's got ghosts.
Yeah.
He's got lots of ghosts.
His wife, the ghost of his wife, because she was there. I'd say practically through the whole movie.
Yeah.
She kept popping up because she knew it wasn't. He shouldn't be doing that.
Jam from The Office.
Yeah. And she also told you a face cream commercial that talks about the cream that makes her lines disappear. So anyway, that's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up or become one of our subscribers. So you can tell us what you thought of the new Monk movie, and also what are you watching now, and what are you liking about what you're seeing, or what do you not like about what you're seeing? So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.